employment, though it gets a bad rap, I understand why it gets a bad rap, but it does have its benefits, right? Because again, no one is going to take your success, your health, more serious than you are. An employer is not going to take it more serious than you are. So it's up to you to really grab life by the reins and say, you know what, Kadeem, this is it. What are we doing? We got to get this thing done. What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Success Spectrum Podcast. I'm your host, Kadeem McLean, and today I just want to share a bit of a personal story with you. It's about how my job almost killed me. Not my current job, but a previous job I had when I was younger. And I'm not going to tell you where I was working or what the job was, but I was working, for anybody who's familiar with the area, the GTA area. I used to work in Niagara. I lived in Mississauga at the time, so it's about an hour drive without traffic. And I worked at a casino, again, not saying which casino, but I worked in IT. And it was a 12-hour shift, right? Either 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. or 7 p.m. to 7 a.m., 12 hours. And it was what they call a continental shift. So I would work Monday, Tuesday. I've had Wednesday, Thursday off, and then I would work Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I would have the Monday, Tuesday off, and then I would work Wednesday, Thursday, and then I'd have Friday, Saturday, Sunday off. And it would just rotate in that way. And every time that 2 weeks was up, I would shift from morning to night. So 7 a.m. is when I would start for that 2 weeks. And then the next 2 weeks, I would work from 7 p.m. And long story short, I got into a car accident. But what led up to that car accident was late nights, early mornings, right? Because I'd wake up around maybe 5 a.m. or so to get to work. And then, of course, I would have to, and I was driving, like I said, but then I would work and then come home, shower, eat if I can, get to sleep, because I need to make sure I get at least a decent amount of sleep, wake up and go back to work. And during this particular 2-week period, maybe there was very little food that I was eating, very little sleep that I was getting, because I still had other things to do outside of work. So I had to make sure I got those things done. But of course, I would try to get enough sleep because sleep is paramount. But long story short, I'm driving. And to be honest with you, I feel like I blacked out. Right? I was driving home from work one day. And to be honest, I wasn't even driving all the way home. I said I worked in Niagara. So again, anyone familiar with the city, there's Niagara, there's St. Catharines, and there's Welland. So I wasn't even going 2 cities over. I was going from Niagara to St. Catharines, which is basically 1 city over. And I was on the main streets because I said to myself, I'm not able to drive all the way home. I had a friend who lived in the area. So I said, hey, is it okay basically if I crash at your place just for a few hours until I got to go back to work? And they're like, yeah, okay, no problem. Leading up to this period, on my drives home, sometimes I would pull into a random neighborhood and try to close my eyes for a little bit, because that drive home after a 12-hour shift, my eyes would be heavy, I would say, right? My eyes would sometimes be closing, which is very dangerous. So I'd pull over, try to take a nap, wake up, and then get back on the road. But of course, if I have another 12-hour shift coming up the next day, I can only close my eyes for so long. So I'd have to get back on the road. Now, this particular day, again, I'm driving home, or rather I'm driving to my friend's house, and I feel like I just blacked out, right? Lack of sleep, lack of nutrients, lack of fuel in my body. And what happened was my eyes opened just before the crash happened, and I was in oncoming traffic, right? I believe the car was parked. I was driving a little 92 Accord, and the car that I crashed into was a Ram, right? A big truck. Thankfully, no one got hurt. No one got injured. I had a little issue with my ankle and my wrist, but nothing else other than that. The car was completely mangled. Maybe I'll show some pictures here. But the car was completely destroyed. And the hood came in through the windshield, right? Of course, I'm in the driver's side, but it came, if the hood was a few inches over, it would have pierced my head. And therefore, I say I thank God, because God saved me in that situation. Now, what happened? I think I took the next 2 days off, right? Because it was either my scheduled days off, or I took 1 day off of work, and then I had my 2 days off following. But my next scheduled shift, do you think I went in? Of course. Because here's the thing about employment, right? Here's the thing about a job. When you have a situation, your income stops coming in, right? Because you're not showing up to work, you're not working hours, you're not getting paid. However, your bills keep coming because you still need a roof over your head. You still need to eat. You still need to pay for whatever it is you're paying for, your phone bill, your internet, whatever the case might be. These things keep coming. The companies don't call you and say, hey, Mr. or Mrs. Client, I know you're in a situation, your bill's covered for the next month while you take your time to heal. That doesn't happen. So of course, I got up, then my next scheduled shift, and I went in. How did I get there? So this is how I was working 19-hour days. I didn't have the car because the car was completely totaled. I would travel 3.5 hours to work a 12-hour shift, and travel 3.5 hours back home. How did we go from 1 hour to 3.5? Well, I had to take the bus, had to take the train, had to do some running to get to work on time. If you feel stuck financially, I wrote a book for you, and it's called Your Wings of Abundance, your strategic guide to uplift and empower you to financial overflow. This book was written with you in mind. If what I'm about to say resonates with you, then this is exactly for you. I wrote this book from the perspective of seeing my mother raise 6 kids on her own, right? Take care of us, pay the bills, go to work 2 or 3 jobs at a time. I wrote this book from the perspective of things that I went through financially in life, not having the financial knowledge, no one really stopping to teach me anything about finances, not knowing really what investments are or how they work, right? Knowing maybe 1 or 2 things, thinking I knew it all, but had no idea. So if any of these things resonate with you, go ahead and click that link in the description and get yourself a copy. If you know anybody that it resonates with, do the same for them. All right. It's almost the holiday season. Give them the gift of financial literacy, financial education. When I left work, my shift would finish at 7. The bus stop was about maybe a 20-minute walk, and the bus would come at 7:13. So if I finish at 7, and if I just walk, I'm going to be late. So 7 o'clock hits, I have to run to the bus stop to make it there for 7:13. If I don't make it there at 7:13, I got to wait another hour for the bus to come. So after my shift, I'd run to the bus and then head back home, of course. Bus would take me to the train station, hop on the train for a little bit, hop on another bus, and then the transit. Long story short, 3.5 hours one way, 12-hour shift, 3.5 hours back home. So it was a lot. But this situation led me to realize that something I already knew and something we all know, and this isn't to shame any employers or anything along those lines. Without employers, we wouldn't be able to have the opportunity to have a job, right? This isn't to shame employers, but it's just to say that nobody takes your success and your well-being more serious than you do, or than you should. In that situation, I had to realize for myself as a 18, 19-year-old, Kadeem, no one cares about this more than you do. You've been listening to Eric Thomas, you've been listening to certain motivational and reading certain books and all the whole 9 yards. So what are you doing still showing up to work and you have nothing being planned for yourself? Long story short, I left that job without anything lined up. And within 2 weeks before I actually left for my first vacation that I planned, I got another opportunity way closer to home, paying me quite a bit more, better environment, and things worked out. And so that is, in a nutshell, to a degree, the story of how I almost lost my life thanks to my job, right? Now, what that next job allowed me to do is it allowed me to come into an opportunity working in the financial industry. Long story short, I was in charge of putting in a new internet connection in the building for my employer, and somebody worked at Rogers part-time, or rather full-time, and they had a business on the side, let's call it, in the financial industry, that they introduced me to. I don't know what happened. To this day, I couldn't tell you the full conversation, but we're sitting down waiting for some floor plans, him and I randomly sparked a conversation with him about investments. He said to me, have you heard about the rule of 72? I said, no, what is that? He said, what about dollar cost averaging? I said, no idea. What is that? He said, you need to sit with me, man. And I sat with him, and literally within about an hour, maybe an hour and a half, I witnessed him change my perspective on money, on finances, on many different aspects of finances, insurance, investments, how it all works and intertwines, and my goals and my plans. Because that conversation allowed me to immediately put certain things in place that said, okay, if I don't make it to accomplish certain goals, these plans I put in place will take care of my loved ones. If you want to learn to amass your wealth in stocks, bonds, real estate, in commodities, if you want to learn how to protect your wealth or transfer generationally down the line in the way that you want it to be transferred, this book right here is a must read for you. The Legacy of a Silver Spoon, Managing Wealth and Relationships by Al Compton. You must get yourself a copy because you need it. If you want to do anything that I just mentioned, without reading this book, you're not going to be able to do it in the way that you want to get it done. You might not even know that there's different types of trust or which type of trust you need. This book will help you in determining that. You might not even know what a stock is or what a bond is. This book will teach you every piece of information you need to know financially to get you from where you are to where you want to be. Go ahead and click that link in the description to get yourself a copy, right? And in that hour and a half, I witnessed him help me change my family's trajectory. And at the same time, I witnessed him make more money than I made in a 2-week period in that 1.5 hours. So I said, wait a second, you're doing nothing but good for me because you're helping me. And yes, of course, you should get paid because you're helping people, but you're getting paid that? How can I be in that position? And I'm grateful to say I am in that position now, thank God. But the point is, I decided, you know what? Is there a way for me to do what you're doing? And he was confused at first. He said, pardon, what? I said, yeah, like, is there a way for me to get into your position? Like to do exactly what you're doing? Because to me, it's beautiful. You're helping somebody and you get paid for helping them. And you, of course, you're changing their life and helping them plan for their family and their future. How can I do what you're doing? He invited me out to the office. We had conversations. And again, lo and behold, thank God I'm here today. So all of that, those experiences that I went through, and that's just, of course, one small picture. But that situation changed, again, how I view employment, because even with my next employer that I mentioned, it was a better job, better position, better pay, closer to home. For anybody who's familiar, it was in Oakville versus Niagara, so it's much closer to Mississauga. Now, that job in Oakville, I was 21, 22, wasn't great, but it was good. But again, it allowed me to step into that next opportunity. So I'm not trying to minimize employment and saying employment is bad. I'm simply sharing a story with you of kind of how I got to where I am or some of the things that helped to shape where I am now. At that job, again, I realized there was me, right, in IT. There was a person I trained to be in the same position I'm in, and then there was the manager. The manager wasn't going anywhere. Above the manager was the director. I have no place for growth, no room for growth. There's nowhere for me to go, right? There's no growth happening there. I think within 2 years, I realized that, and I said, okay, let me step into the financial thing a little bit more. And essentially, lo and behold, it led me to writing this book, right? Wings of Abundance. And all the other things that I'm doing, right? The podcast, the coaching business I have, still doing the financial business. So one thing I want to say about that, again, is not to discount employment or experiences in life, but realize that every situation you go through is shaping you and molding you to become the person that you're meant to be. Do I think I'm the person who I'm meant to be? No, not yet, but I am stepping towards that. It's about progress, and I'm making progress. So just a reminder for you that everything you've been through to this point, helping to shape you into who you are and who you are supposed to be, who you're called to be. It's my belief that God calls me to be a specific man, a specific version of myself, a specific, husband and father. And I'm not those things yet, but a specific husband and father and a specific person in my community, whether my spiritual community or just my network of friends or business partners or whatever the case is, my family. And I am not yet that person, but I am making the steps daily to become that person, right? And all of those experiences I just mentioned have led me to this point, which is further than I was before. So don't discount your situations, the things that have happened to you. Though some of them may have been traumatic, they help you to see things differently. Because again, the beauty's in the eye of the beholder, right? The lens through which you see the world changes everything. If you change that lens a little bit, you convex it a little bit, it's going to change your viewpoint, your dynamic. It's going to change everything. And perspective is everything. So again, employment, though it gets a bad rap, I understand why it gets a bad rap, but it does have its benefits, right? Because again, no one is going to take your success, your health, more serious than you are. An employer is not going to take it more serious than you are. So it's up to you to really grab life by the reins and say, you know what, Kadeem, this is it. What are we doing? We got to get this thing done. This book right here, right? I wrote this book in, I'll say, a short span of time. This book has been ready for about a year. I didn't release it. Why? I'm a perfectionist, and that's not an excuse. I should have released it sooner, but everything happens when it's time. And so the next book is going to come sooner, right? However, I wrote this book in let's say a short span of time. And of course, I'm there revising it, editing it, and so on until one day when I took a trip up to Quebec somewhat recently in September 2024. I was sitting, and one of the reasons for this trip was to kind of get some time away and to spend some time with God. It was me, myself. I drove up 7 or 8 hours and just spent a couple of days out there. And one of the things I heard is, Kadeem, what are you doing? Why have you not released this book? Like, this book is to help people. What are you doing holding on to this information that you had for a year now? Right? This book, which you've had for a year, which has information in it that will help people. And I said, you know what? I'm being disobedient. I need to release it, because regardless of how I think it is, regardless of if I think I put every single detail and knowledge financially that I have into this book or not, this is the start. This is one of the reasons why it's not such a thick book, because it allows people to pick it up who are not that used to reading. The language in there is very simple. When you look at a thick book, sometimes it's daunting. 200 pages, 150 pages, 120 pages. Not a lot of people are going to read those books. But this one, it's small. You could pick it up, you could read it, and you could still get vital information that's going to help you on your trajectory in life. Right? As the tagline says, it's going to help you because it's your strategic guide to uplift and empower you to financial overflow. So again, without going through that work experience, right, and employment experience, and having a different perspective to say, if it is to be, it's up to me. And unless I give them control, but nobody has more control, and no one has as much of an interest in my success, in my health, than I do, than I should. And it's the same for you. So unless you're giving somebody else control and playing the victim, the control is yours. And even if you are playing the victim, I want to give you a newsflash. You can take that control back whenever you are ready. All right. So just a quick story for you. Hopefully you're able to glean some type of information from it, because there are some principles in there. And if you listen, they say some of the best lessons are caught and not taught. So I'm not here teaching today per se, but I'm just sharing a story with you, personal story of some of the things that helped me to get to where I am. All right. So hopefully it was helpful. Kadeem here, and I'll see you in the next one.